Lunch. I was getting a PTSD sitting outside after the showdown on the weekend. Are there any Port fans in the building? Disgraceful. Don't sit outside, it will start coming back to you. Horrible. All right, on to the next session. Leanne Isaacson from Savvy AI Solutions. Is AI a scary doomsday scenario or an essential tool for the future? You're about to find out. Leanne is an innovative AI integrator, trainer, and not-for-profit director who doesn't just talk about AI, she builds it into the fabric of daily operations across sectors. From HR and governance to marketing and reporting, Leanne asks, what if AI could, and then figures out how. She's known for sharing ideas that make people say, I never even thought of doing that. A digital pioneer since the 90s and Australia's only member of the International Association of AI Consultants, Leanne empowers others to think differently, act smartly, and integrate AI without losing the human touch. Please welcome Leanne.
Thank you, everyone. Look, I'm really happy to be here today. So I'm here to talk about AI. But not the buzzwordy kind. This is about how AI is quietly transforming how I work with community organisations like Eastwood. So it's not fancy and it's not perfect, but it's practical, human, and making a real difference where it matters. So I know I don't look like your typical tech person, and honestly I'm not. My journey into tech didn't start in Silicon Valley, it started on a cattle farm in the Mallee. I was born in the 60s, so didn't grow up with computers or coding camps, but I did have some early jobs in the 80s that nudged me into tech before it was actually cool. So one was at a share registry that connected via a phone line to the mainframe in Melbourne, and this was in the mid-80s. At the time it just felt like part of the job, but now I realised it was pretty innovative for the era. We used to be able to message between different share registries and on a Monday morning see what someone had done on the weekend. So when I moved back to the country in 1989 to farm, first in the Mallee and then the Fleurieu, I had to find other ways to stay connected. And this slide shows exactly how I did it. So yep, that's the tractor cab, and yes, that's an iPad strapped to the dashboard. I'd be out there raking hay, shifting cattle or delivering hay, all while listening to podcasts, watching webinars and learning everything I could about technology, marketing, business, community development, and now AI. So I've never had a linear path. Most people in this room probably don't even know who I am. I've pretty much flown under the radar, but I've been learning and experimenting with tech for over 30 years now, not as a developer, not as a coder, but as someone deeply curious, someone always asking, how does this work? Can we do it better? And that mindset, curiosity, experimentation, learning by doing, that's really what's carried me through to everything I do with AI today. So my path to AI wasn't straight. It wasn't corporate, it was hands-on, grassroots, and often a laptop on the front seat of the ute. In the late 90s, you might notice the modem, for people that aren't that old, the modem used to it was the actual sound of death sometimes, but often in the late 90s we had to turn off the electric fences of the neighbours just so that I could actually send an email through the dial-up modem. Eventually the two-way satellite dish revolutionised my connection. By 2000, I was actually employed by the Information Economy Policy Office, a state government department, with a program called Networks for You. I literally drove around the rural regions with my laptop, a modem, a projector and a screen, teaching people how to use the internet. And I knew at the time it would actually change our lives, but I probably didn't quite realise how much. In 2004, I was lucky enough to win a Flexible Learning Leaders Scholarship, and that really changed everything for me. So I started renting online meeting rooms, and that was before webinars, the word didn't even exist. We ran national workshops and meetings online, including a wine appreciation session between South Australia and Wales in 2004. And that's when I really realised that tech could bridge the geographic divide, but only if we made it feel human, useful and fun. So fast forward to 2008, remember I was actually a farmer still at the time. So we launched a new farm business, selling lucerne hay direct to horse owners, which I had no experience in whatsoever. But at the time, I was also able to actually do an online marketing course, which was down at Noarlunga TAFE. So I would drive down there, this was in 2008, and we were learning about domains, websites, and so what I did, I was lucky enough to be able to actually use what I was learning in our farm business on the ground. So I built the website, I ran Google ads, set up email marketing, tracked analytics. So everything I was learning about digital marketing, I tested on our own business in real time. So in 2007, I joined LinkedIn and grew that network. I currently have over 30,000 LinkedIn connections. And in 2013, I was running Facebook pages that hit 10,000 fans within 3 weeks. So no formal university here in my world, but I probably spent more than a HECS debt on courses, masterminds and programs with global experts over the time. And in 2022, November 2022, one of those communities pointed me in the direction of ChatGPT. And the moment I tried it, I was hooked. So I started applying it everywhere, in my business, in other businesses and not-for-profits. So I was testing, refining and adapting it to real-life needs. You know, I was helping electricians work out quotes. I was working with real estate agents. So now as a certified AI consultant, I can honestly say it's that same question that's driven everything. Can we do this better? So not with hype, not with robots, but with smart human-first technology that actually makes a difference. So I'll give you the context of Eastwood. So how did this curiosity and hands-on tech journey lead me here? So these days I'm the director of the Eastwood Community Centre. So it's an independent not-for-profit on Glen Osmond Road. So we're not run by council and we operate a bit differently than most people assume. So we've got a really small team, so there's just two full-time and 2 part-time staff, and we're guided by a volunteer management committee. But don't let our size fool you. In the past 12 months alone, we've had 20,000 attendances, from babies a few months old to seniors in their 90s. And we run everything from playgroup to support groups, playgroup, marketing workshops, floristry, podcasting, tango, yoga, and we've got a beautiful community garden. And so here's the thing, we do it all on limited resources. We wear multiple hats and we rely on grants, venue hire and partnerships to keep the doors open and the lights turned on, which means that every innovation matters. So every tool that can save us time, helps us reach more people, or makes things easier for our team, and that makes such a big difference. And so that's really why AI caught my attention. So not for the hype, but for the very real, very practical ways that it could actually help people like us in the communities we serve. And so why this matters. So the not-for-profit sector is full of heart, but let's be honest, it also is full of stretched budgets, overworked teams, and not always enough in-house expertise to go around. So most of us are doing a lot with very little, and that's where AI has quietly stepped in for us at Eastwood. So it's not about replacing people, it's about supporting them. So AI has helped us reclaim time. It's boosted our confidence, but more importantly, it's actually filled skills gaps. So not by asking us to become tech experts, but giving us some practical tools that we can actually use. And the best bit, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be expensive, and it definitely doesn't have to be perfect from day one. You can start small, use it for one task, build from there, and that's what we've done, and honestly it's made a genuine difference. So I want to talk about some of the things that we've been doing at Eastwood and the way that we've been using AI within our organisation. So this is where it really shows up every day, you know, behind the scenes. So we're not marketers or copywriters, but AI has helped us write solid content when we've needed it. So we use it for Eventbrite listings, for social posts, for newsletters. So things that we used to spend way too long on, now we get a decent first draft done in minutes, and then we tweak it to sound like us. And some of our events that we hold at the community centre, it's actually been a game changer, because what we've been able to do is we've been able to actually, adapt menus. We've been able to identify, like exactly the amount of quantities that we need, how we can budget. And really it's just, allowed us to have a lot less stress, but also a lot less waste, and actually being able to maximise the amount of dollars that we have. And then there's the bus repair story. This might sound a little bit bizarre, but I'd actually got a quote for our community bus to have some repairs done. And I thought, well, I'm not a mechanic. I've got no idea whether it's actually, a good quote and whether everything was needed. So I actually ran the quote through ChatGPT. And what it did is it broke it down, and it helped me figure out what was actually urgent and what could wait. But what that also did was it actually gave me the confidence to call another mechanic and get a second opinion. And in the end, we saved over $2,000 just by being able to ask better questions. So again, it's not replacing anyone, it's just taking some of the mental load off. It's helping us make decisions faster, communicate clearer, and get on with the real work that we do day to day. So the next thing that we're actually using AI chat, and in particular ChatGPT, but we use it to help us communicate more clearly. And whether that's crafting emails to ministers, inviting them to open events, or whether it's writing sponsorship proposals or putting together resources for our community. But we also care deeply about how we sound, and our tone matters. So we want to be warm, clear and community focused, not robotic or generic. So what we've done is we've created our own custom GPT trained on Eastwood's voice. So we fed it our annual reports, strategic plans, our constitution, program booklets, basically all of the things that are actually publicly documented, public documents. We've put that into ChatGPT and actually trained it on who we are, what we do, how we speak. And so after 2.5 years of working alongside us, it's really become one of our team members. So it helps us to say what we need to say in a way that actually sounds like us, with less stress and more consistently. But it's always got that human touch. So everything that we do, we run it through our own eyes, and we add our own context, we add our own words, we tell it we don't like it when it says something that we don't agree with. So it's really allowed us from a communication perspective, and especially we have a couple of staff members that are actually from non-English speaking background. And so what it's allowed them to do is actually be able to write and ensure that what they're writing actually has a little bit more consistency. So I want to show you some of the things that I've also been using it for. This was actually one of those accidental genius moments. So I didn't plan to use AI. We'd actually done a brainstorming session with our staff. And when I was doing it, I was thinking nothing more about just capturing and scrawling notes and capturing what we were actually talking about. So there was total, as you can see, total chaos, scribbles, arrows, barely legible handwriting. So normally I would have had to sit down and actually type that out myself, because no one else can read my handwriting. So, but instead I thought, well, I took a photo of it anyway because I was going to use that, to actually transcribe. But instead I uploaded the photo into ChatGPT and asked, can you make sense of this? And it did. It read my handwriting and it pulled out the key ideas, organised them under headings, and suddenly we had a clear, structured plan. So that was the light bulb moment for me, that it wasn't just about writing, it wasn't just about content, it was actually about seeing. And it wasn't just answering questions or generating content, that this could change the way that we capture and action ideas. So think about, all of the scribbled notes that we've all taken in meetings or conferences, I've probably taken multitudes of pages of notes even just, this morning. But how often do we actually revisit them? So now a quick photo and a prompt and they don't get lost, and then they can actually get turned into something that we can actually use. So not long after the whiteboard moment, I found myself wondering, what else can it do? We actually had a fashion parade, a fundraising high tea fashion parade coming up, and they were all outfits from op shops. And so what I needed to do was actually write the MC script for the actual fashion parade. So normally what that would have meant was me standing in front of them, typing up descriptions and trying to make them sound halfway interesting. So I gave it a go, snapped a photo of the dress and asked ChatGPT to write a short description. And it nailed it, not just functional, it was fabulous. So suddenly we had a full commentary done in a fraction of the time with way more flair and fun that we could have pulled together under pressure. So what I love about it isn't the fact that it's just the time saved, it's that it's unlocked a whole new way of thinking about what's possible. So one photo, one prompt, and dozens of hours saved across the event. So this is one of my favourite ways that AI has helped. So not with flashy tech, but the day-to-day stuff that usually eats up time and headspace. So like when the hot water service started beeping. So I had no idea what it meant. And normally that would be, I would have to be calling a plumber, and with the way that the community centre works, we lease the building from the city of Burnside, but I have to maintain everything within the building. And so, of course, when the hot water service starts beeping, to me all I just see is dollar signs. So what I did is I took a photo of the hot water service, put it into ChatGPT and said, can you tell me why this would be beeping? And what it did is it came back with, a couple of likely suggestions, and one that it was some random battery that was held somewhere within the hot water service. So what I could actually do then is actually give the plumber a call and tell him what I thought that it was without sounding completely clueless. So the same thing with our new coffee machine. It's an amazing machine, but not very user-friendly for volunteers. So again, I used ChatGPT to create step-by-step visual instructions in plain English. So what had been taking time out of our staff to actually go and explain to, people that were coming into the centre how to actually use the coffee machine, now they can they've got a step-by-step guide to how to use it. So once I realised that it could actually see and interpret, it completely changed the way that we thought about using AI. We started seeing new possibilities everywhere. It wasn't just a text tool anymore, it was a practical problem solver. So these small wins have added up to big changes. We save time, reduce friction, and free up energy to focus on what really matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not about knowing all the answers. It's about knowing how to ask the right questions and having a tool that helps you figure out things quickly, affordably, with a bit less stress. So one of the things that I often say, and honestly it sums up how I feel, so ChatGPT doesn't write for me, it helps me write as my best self, sometimes quickly. So I'll give you a real example. So I'd used ChatGPT to help craft a nomination for a South Australian Training Award. So I'd fed it all sorts of information and, with lots and lots of iterations, sent through the nomination, and we became a finalist, which was exciting. And the actual awards dinner was at the convention centre, and it happened to be on the same day as our fundraising high tea. So hosting that during the day, literally closing that at 4:30, frantically getting changed. I was about to race out the door, and all of a sudden I realised, what if we won? Like I didn't have anything prepared. So I went to my trusty friend Charlie and said, refer back to the conversations and what you know about our nomination for the Excellence in Diversity Award. please create me an acceptance speech just in case we win. And so literally within seconds, it had actually created an acceptance speech for me, which I was able to tweak just a little bit, quickly print out and walk out the door. So we didn't win that night, but I wasn't flustered because I knew that if my name had been called, I would have been able to stand on stage and have the words ready and be able to say them without stumbling over anything. So that's the power of AI when it's trained well. So it's not replacing our voice, it's about helping us use it with more confidence and clarity. So one of the things that I've been doing also at Eastwood is creating custom assistants or custom GPTs. So I want to be really clear, these aren't off-the-shelf tools. I built every one of them myself based on actually what we needed at Eastwood. They're completely tailored, no unnecessary bells and whistles, just practical helpers that save us time, reduce the mental load and make our work better. So I've created grant assistance reporting tools. I've even created an inclusive language checker, which basically we can upload any communications that we're creating to just ensure that it's got appropriate inclusive language. And within the community sector, that's actually really important. So these are built around how we work, the way we speak, and the kind of content we have to produce, often with tight deadlines and small teams. So I've got specific GPTs set up for different grants that we actually receive, and I can use those to help me write final reports. They have guidelines, past grant applications and past grant reports sitting as their underpinning training. So before AI, we used to copy and paste old documents. So, within probably businesses, but, like within the not-for-profit sector, we've done a lot of this stuff before and we go back and we create from what we've created in the past. And we used to tweak things manually. We'd second-guess our tone and we'd spend hours trying to get the wording right. So now we upload examples, add a bit of context, and let the GPT do the bulk of the work so we can focus on the human bits, our creativity, our strategy, and our care. And honestly, this is something that I love doing, so not just for Eastwood, but for other businesses and other not-for-profits too. So if there's content or processes that are a bit clunky, we can build a GPT to make it easier. So one that speaks in your voice, not generic AI speak. I test out other tools, Claude, Gemini, Gamma, HeyGen. I've cloned my voice. I don't use that very often, but I must admit I've had a cold for the last couple of weeks and a terrible cough. And this morning I was thinking maybe I could just actually use my cloned voice and create something that if I, for some reason today, couldn't speak, I could actually play my cloned voice. I didn't do that though. So one thing is I did use Gamma to help with me create this presentation, but I fell back into the old PowerPoint habits, and when I downloaded it into PowerPoint, it didn't look quite as good. So anyway, that's a story for another day. So what's the impact? Honestly, it's been huge. So we're not scrambling as much. Things don't fall through the cracks. Our messaging is consistent, our reports are more polished, and our team feels confident to try new things. So it's also lowered the stress, especially around things that used to take hours, like grant writing. I know that I can use my own ideas and plug them into what AI knows and create with speed and clarity. And the amount of times that I've spent, a couple of days writing a grant application and, in the last couple of hours still frantically trying to tweak it. I can create the actual grant application by uploading the guidelines, uploading past information, and it can create me a draft fairly quickly that then, I don't have to sit there staring at a blank piece of paper. So, and the tools are tailored to us, so they're not intimidating. We know that, the GPTs that we've created, we know that they've got the information from the community centre in them. So again, rather than the old cut and paste from past documents, we can add new ideas and have them combined with what it knows. So this isn't about being perfect, and it's about progress and giving yourself and our team permission to try, test and tweak along the way. And that's where the real innovation lives. But we always have human impact into our outputs. So everything that we do, we look at, we refine, we iterate. So everything that's created has always got the human touch that comes from within us. So really, this is honestly the mindset that shaped everything for me. It's about curiosity, and I know that we've heard about curiosity first thing this morning. So I don't start with how do I use AI here. I start with, I wonder if AI could help. And that little question, I wonder if, has been the spark behind nearly every tool, every workflow, and every aha moment we've had. It's curiosity, not perfection, that's opened the door. And the best part, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to try something, test it, tweak it, and see what happens. I always used to say, as long as the impact, what's the worst that can happen? As long as no one dies, then you just fix it and you try again. So if you catch yourself thinking, I wonder whether AI could help with this, give it a go. That's where the magic starts. But I get it, AI can feel pretty intimidating. It's like you're staring down a Highland cow the size of a small car and wondering, am I really going to try this? But honestly, once you take that first step, it's nowhere near as scary as it seems. So I quite often spend my driving time talking to my friend Charlie Chat. And I think it's one of the things that a lot of people don't tend to think about, being able to actually talk to it. But most of what we're doing now, you know, the image recognition, the transcribing, summarising, the custom GPTs, we had no idea how it worked when we started, but we gave it a go. And here's the thing, you don't need to know everything before you start. You just need enough courage to try something new and see where it takes you. So you don't need to know everything and get it perfect. Just start small. So dip your toes into the water. Pick one annoying, repetitive task, something that takes too much time or drains your energy, and try using AI to help it. That's your first experiment. And then here's what I found. Even if something's only 20% better, that adds up fast across the week. In our team, momentum built through curiosity. Honestly, half the time I'd be sitting in my office and I'd be trying something, yelling out, quick, come and have a look at this. And suddenly we'd all be huddled around my screen or one of the other girls' screen, tweaking a prompt or testing something new. The magic wasn't in the tech, it was in the trying and the sharing and the permission to learn out loud. So AI doesn't replace. At the end of the day, AI in our sector isn't here to replace people. When the admin's lighter, when the tech does the heavy lifting in the background, we get to show up with more presence, more care and more capacity connect. It isn't about removing people from the picture, it's about putting them back at the centre, and that to me is the best kind of innovation. So thanks so much for having me here today. I hope it's sparked a few ideas, or at least AI feel a little less intimidating. And I've really just scratched the surface today. I could talk all day about it. So if you'd like some more practical examples on how not-for-profits can use ChatGPT, I put together a free book with Charlie with detailed use cases and prompts. So you can scan the QR code, email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. And honestly, once you start using it, you'll begin to see how AI can help everywhere, even in places you'd least expect. Just the other day, my son and I were in Bunnings trying to figure out which bracket to use to fix the toilet holder to the rail. So what we did, we took a photo of the toilet roll holder, took a photo of the aisle of the fittings and asked ChatGPT which one will work best, and it told us. Now, is that a traditional not-for-profit case? No, but it shows the mindset that makes our AI so powerful in our space. So be curious, ask the question, see what happens. Again, AI in our sector isn't here to replace people, it's to level the playing field, to give us back time, energy and clarity so we can do more of what we do best, being human, helping humans. That's the real power of AI for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. I did do one thing while you were talking. I asked ChatGPT to tell me a joke about a community centre using AI. Because it was tired of Janet booking Zumba in the quiet meditation room every week, now it's just the AI passive-aggressively double booking her with Tai Chi. It doesn't understand humour. That's one thing I've learned about ChatGPT, is it can't tell a joke. You shared some great examples of AI in action at Eastwood. What advice would you give to small, not-for-profit or community organisations that are curious or nervous about getting started with AI?
I think really it's about using the tools that are most accessible. And, again, at our community centre, we use ChatGPT. We use a Teams version which is more secure from a privacy perspective. But I think one of the most important things is to ensure that whatever you're using, you've got your privacy settings locked down. So what you're actually putting into the conversations is not being used to train the models. I think that's something that a lot of people sort of don't think about. So, but yeah, just trying, and trying something that's simple.
Can you share some strategies or processes that you've used to train staff in using AI? Because I'm assuming people working there have all different levels of understanding or trust in AI. How do you approach that?
I think, like for us at Eastwood, it's been relatively simple because we're such a small team. And so, we do spend time sitting going through how we can use it. And but the custom GPTs have helped a lot because, everyone can use the same instructions. It knows how to write. So I think, just starting with simple things and seeing the output and then trusting to iterate on that.
Had a few questions come in about the environmental impacts of using AI, especially for basic tasks where you could use a search engine. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, one of the things from a time perspective is, like AI has helped us with a lot of the things that, like just my hot water service example, the time that it would have taken me to actually identify that. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that one. I'll give that some thought.
Interesting one here that's come in. How do you think the use of AI tools is affecting critical thinking skills? This is actually a conversation I had at work only last week because I realised I've actually forgotten how to write a media release because I may be possibly using ChatGPT to give me the first draft.
I think it is about the knowledge that we already have and how we're using that knowledge to get better outputs from the AI that we're actually having it help us use. So for me, it's still thinking about the output and my brain's going, actually, no, I want that better and I want that different. So I'm still using my brain to keep getting things better, but it will be interesting to see, like without that experience, what that looks like.
Big picture thinking, what are your goals for the future using this technology? Where do you see the centre going?
Oh, look, I think it's just really continuing to think about things that we do on a day-to-day basis and how we can make that easier. And, AI takes so many different forms, like having agents to do some of the automation within the centre, like automatic replying to emails. So I think it's just evolving and thinking about, just on a case-by-case basis, working out whether we can do it better and simpler and allowing us more time to do the people things.
Do you have an AI transparency clause that publicly discloses your use of AI for business? And if not, is this something you'll consider or something you consider important?
I don't have a transparency clause as such, but we certainly do have, our AI policies and ethical use of AI. And at the centre, we don't keep people's data. And so from a privacy perspective, we don't do reports on individuals. So, it's not personal data that, from a privacy perspective. But yeah, the transparency, if we're creating public documents, I will say that it's created with, coupled with AI. But the transparency clause is not something that I'd thought about.
We've had a few questions coming about, using AI when talking to an audience, and we'll explore this in a little bit because you're on the panel that we're about to do on AI with a few other people. But you're working for a community centre, you're using AI to help you with a lot of the admin tasks. How do you feel about using AI to talk to the public? And are you getting away from being a community centre that's a public place and you're real people talking to real people, and it's turning into robots talking to real people? And sort of, really, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on what you mean by talking, like talking to the public.
Like even say ChatGPT is writing your social media content for a community centre that's very human-focused. How do you balance that?
I suppose one of the things that I would... that I would think about is, regardless, we don't have necessarily the social media expertise within our staff, within our community centre. So I would potentially be outsourcing that to someone else's voice anyway. So it's about how it's about how you make sure that it's in your voice tone and that it's not the robotic sounding. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you'll be on the panel session, which we're about to do. We're going to have a 5-minute break. We'll set up for that. There's a few more people jumping on board, but please thank Leanne.
Thank you.